Welcome to the Dhane and Josh show. The last time we were here, we were talking with JT after our championship celebration, but now it's a new year and we're ready to go.
On today's episode, we have a very special guest, our very own Matt Vinc.
Today, we have an 8-time NLL goaltender of the year, 4-time NLL Cup champion, a man who leads all NLL goalies in career wins.
All right. We're going to be here all day with naming off all his accomplishments. Vino, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Pleasure. I wanted to get on last year, but I didn't get an invite, I think. So
Yeah,
just
must have got lost in the mail.
We want to start
I live far
the
away.
new season with the best in the business.
Yeah, man. How have you been? How's everything going? How's the holidays?
Pretty good. Hectic. Probably different than your guys' holidays. Just Christmas. A lot of excitement with the kids, and waking up at 4 a.m, doing all those things, and I think it's different than obviously a lot of the guys on our team, but it's those years that I think you guys are going to be looking forward to and embracing.
What was your kids' favorite gifts?
Well, I bought some of the gifts knowing that they were going to be, my favorite gifts. So,
Right.
I think the one was an Optimus Prime transformer that actually remote control transforms and drives.
That's sweet.
So it's pretty sweet.
That is really sweet.
And then I always liked the Ninja Turtle pizza thrower. I don't know if anybody else here is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, but
Yeah.
I had one as a kid and I lost it, being the younger brother, brothers broke toys.
Yeah.
So actually we use it for lacrosse and hockey. Like I would go in net and they would
Right.
you would shoot it at you.
Smart.
Lost it. And a little interesting fact there, on my wedding day, my wife actually found one and gave it to me on my wedding day.
No way.
Yeah, like a lot of those little toys that is fun. Now my son's getting, with some of the ones that I like, maybe a little bit more than him. And, my daughter got a lot of, toys that maybe, I liked them at the time, but just to be a good guy. But
Well, that's there's a little tip in there for Fee and Kara about some wedding day presents. We'll be looking forward to those. But no, it's cool because for me, we hosted for the first time Christmas breakfast and Christmas dinner. But it's really cool because my younger brother has a 4-year-old daughter. Beautiful girl, Ashlyn. She's incredible. But it's cool because I feel like growing up and where we're at right now, you don't get to see how excited kids are.
Carrie Fee doesn't get excited for your gifts.
No, she doesn't get that fired up.
Okay.
She's not waking up at 6 a.m. and looking at me like Santa's here.
Yeah.
Right?
What's a normal? Sorry to cut you off, but what's a normal time for the kids to wake up nowadays? Because for me and my family, I swear it's like 4 a.m., 4 or 5 a.m., and then my family would go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I'd be up or I'd go back to sleep and then play with my gifts.
You were
again.
probably a terrible kid to try to hide everything from.
No, my brother was.
Yeah.
I was bad, but I wasn't looking. I wasn't snooping.
Yeah.
But I was excited for sure.
yeah, like Bowie was up at 4 a.m, but I don't think he realized that actually it was Christmas. And but he was loud enough that woke up my daughter. My daughter's 7. She came in fired up, ran on the bed. It's Christmas, Bodie's Christmas. And then it was like, hey, let's sleep here. We're not going down for another hour. Like in my house, it was always like growing up with my family, it was you had to wait for coffee to be brewed and tea be made.
Yeah.
And then you were able to go down, and we got down there at 6 o'clock in the morning and we opened presents and
Sleeping
it was utter pandemonium. Then you were getting to my family coming over at noon and you're like, I need a nap for sure. So
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was the same thing for us. Like Ashton came running down, and it was 8, and I thought that was early. So I don't know how you do 6. But switching gears here a little bit. It's been a tough season for us. I feel like in general. We started off. I feel like in Albany. I feel like we didn't really. I don't want to say that we took Albany for granted, but I feel like we took Albany for granted this year. And obviously, they started off, they're 4-0 right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're lightening up. They've got the rookie playing really well. What are your thoughts on, the first little half of the season here, or quarter?
Yeah, I feel like it's been tough. I think with, just even myself, like barely played in the, exhibition game, and, that, you're just, I think you're waiting for that first game to kind of be like, now it's, whatever we did last year, it's over with and let's turn the page. And it just seemed like it didn't happen. And, you're waiting for Albany. You're like, you go in there almost with, a tough mindset because you're like, oh, I don't know a lot of these guys. We don't really know what to expect. We've had problems playing against them in the past. And, now they got to, some guys are stepping in, and defensively, we had a lot of guys in and out of the lineup. And you're just trying to, we really didn't know what our lineup was actually going to look like, I don't think, until that day. And, we came out and I think it was like 1-1 or 2-2 after the first. And then, we got in some problems. And the wheels fell off.
Listen, we, as an offense, I remember, looking at you and being like, what are we doing? Like, we were just taking penalties. I think I had 2 penalties in the first quarter.
I know,
you had
for sure.
a couple, like
and
one or two.
And you know what? You can get away with it in preseason, but again, it was a wake up call for everything. But my question for you is like, obviously a different perspective is being a goalie. Like, what's your mindset? Like after a goal, like what is your thought process? I'm sure it's different, but like I don't know. Very
like
curious.
it's funny because growing up playing as long as I have, you've had a lot. You try to turn the page.
Yeah.
My brother and I, we've always talked about one save at a time. That's kind of been my model since I've been a little kid. Playing minor lacrosse or hockey, and that short memory, being a goldfish and just trying to forget about it. And that's kind of why we bring Steve in. And I like to talk to those guys because that's my mindset that, we talk about it and then that goal's over.
Yeah.
So after they score, we talk about it. It's kind of like a little bit of a venting, and then we try to turn the page, and just seemed like it happened a lot right in a row. And it, you go into halftime, you're like, oh, you feel that like every pressure that everybody's like, oh, how is Buffalo losing this team? And you start to feel that, and myself, like I go in there and I take off all my equipment and put it back on as a kind of a fresh start, trying to get a new quarter, and just trying to have a restart. And you're searching for those little things. And the one weird thing is that all the time with our group, especially, I think maybe because we're blessed with having a great offense, is even though we're down 4 or 5, I feel like we could. If we could right the ship on the defensive end, we have a chance.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like that. And I think, last year we got away with some of those moments where we're down 4, and then all of a sudden we're in overtime and we win.
Bang, yeah.
And it's like that, especially at home, we get to those momentum type of games. And, I think, we were, the Albany's a tough one. And then we're like, oh, now we got the banner raising ceremony. It's, mentally it's hard. There's a lot of people's families coming in, a lot of that added distractions. And, just thankful that, we brought our A game, I think, in that game.
Yeah, no, big time. Yeah, and it's funny that you said that because, like, there was, like, 4 or 5 minutes left. I think it was, like, 14-12 for them at that point. And I remember being like, we're going to win this game. Like, I really felt like, I'm like, I know we're down, but, like, I felt like we were going to win the game still.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cool mindset, but I don't know if we kind of take it for granted sometimes, where it's like we need to have that kind of that edge that we have in the fourth quarter, coming right out of the gates. But yeah, no, it's funny because like I feel like everyone has a little bit of that, like, you take your gear off and kind of get a refresh. And for us, I don't know if you're thinking.
I keep my gear on.
Yeah.
That's why maybe I should start taking it off.
But like it's like me and you have a good reset.
Yeah.
Where we look at each other and we're like, well, it can't get any worse, man. And it's something, for whatever reason, it makes us both laugh, and we're just like, all right, we'll toss that in the trash and continue to to fight on here. But yeah, it's funny how everyone has different little tendencies that they do to try to turn the page there. But yeah, like I guess like I mean for me, it's been tough to try to figure out how to, pull my emotions down in games. Someone's chirping, whatever the moment is, right? Like for you, how do you keep yourself calm throughout the game?
Well, the good thing for me is like I've never been a guy that's gotten a lot of interaction with other players.
Yeah.
Like even when, playing against Dane, he would always chirp me or whatever. And I wouldn't say anything. Like, because as a goalie, you're like, well, I can't say anything because, if I chirp you, you're a good player. You're probably going to score in that game. So like, you're not going to get anywhere by chirping. And the one thing for me is that, I think, as I've gotten older, I would be more like in that mindset where I'm going to be vocal and yelling. That's one thing I've been trying to get away from. Definitely as I've gotten older, like try not to lift the helmet up and yell at guys. Because, at the end of the day, it's not about, guys not trying or doing something, especially on the defensive end when we have a breakdown. And that's kind of why we get to that. Hey, let's talk to Steve. Let's talk to Mickey. Let's talk to guys. And then they can go to Chugger and try to hopefully fix whatever.
What's going on.
And that's kind of been a good way for me to kind of, vent and be like, what happened there? I didn't see the play or whatever. And again, a lot of it for a goalie is inward. Like you're sitting there. It's a lonely spot sometimes, especially in a game where it's 17-14 and you're like, I shouldn't have let in 17. And you're just trying to like make that next save. And I think that's the only way you can kind of approach it.
Yeah. Like I feel like we have like as an offense, like even if the game's coming down to the wire, right? Like in my head, yes. Do I feel confident that I'm going to make a good play, or do I want to score that game-winning goal? Sure, yes, I do. But do I trust my teammates 100% offensively? But there's 6-7 of us, right? So we all have that chance to do that, which is awesome. Defensively, you have all these guys to come together and make a stop. You're kind of, again, you're like our backbone. So it's like it's got to be a little bit more nerve-wracking in that sense. But you've been doing it for so long, and I feel like growing up watching you playing and now playing with you, obviously like you play better in like those moments, which is really cool to see. And honestly, it's like settling for an offensive player because we know we're going to get that stop and we know, hey, eventually it's going to fall for us. So,
and it's funny because like in game, like big, like going into the final possession and you're like, you're at the bench and you're just like you have like those moments where you're like this is on me, really. Like our team's gonna like they might make a save. I might not even get a shot, but you go in there, you're like, I just need one more save. Like if we're up 12-11, you're like, I just need one more save. And it's funny now, like watching, I watch film and you watch the game, and my wife would be like, oh, I couldn't even take that. That was so nervous. I was like, oh, you were nervous, right? Like, but it's just funny how like people in this crowd are nervous at those moments, and like it's weird. You almost go out sometimes when you're playing good. You go on autopilot a little bit, and you're like, I remember it. I don't really remember it. I don't really remember what I felt. Yeah, but there's
that's the zone.
Yeah,
a lot of like those top athletes, no matter what sport it is, they talk about that. Being in that like flow state, that zone. Like Curry talks about that when he's just nothing can miss, right? When he's hitting threes like crazy. Yeah. And I'm sure you felt it, like when you're in a game where you're just like, everything I'm doing right now is just, I'm not even trying that hard at it, which that's kind of the way you look like anyways when you play.
Coming naturally,
like you're just not even trying. It's like, well, I somehow have 15 points right now, but it's literally the end of the first half, and but like it's cool to be able to like once you find yourself into that moment, you don't even really feel what's going on. You're kind of just like living in that like little system that's going on. It's crazy.
And that's where like as a goalie, you like that's why we have all these weird superstitions or routines, is because you remember what you did. You're like, I gotta write everything down. Oh geez, I played good.
Yeah.
What did I do? I wrote everything down, and then you're like, oh, how come it didn't happen again?
I know.
You search for it, right?
I agree. I mean, I'm not as superstitious as you, but like sometimes when
you were.
Yes, but I mean, he's way more. I think to an extent.
Yeah, I'm more routine. I'm not like I feel like that. I remember, like I was a big hockey fan. Patrick Waugh was really superstitious, and he just said like, he wouldn't skate on the blue line ever, like those type of weird things. Yeah. You're just like, I don't do any of that stuff, but I just try to do all the things where you're like, I wanted to dot all the I's, cross all the T's throughout the course of it's a week process for me because we only play once a week, right? Yeah. So you're like, sometimes they're long weeks when you're like, oh, like when all the routines are adding up, you're like, I got to do this, 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 right?
But it's annoying again, like when when they're hitting, like you had a good game and you're doing exactly what you did the next game and it's not doing it, then you're just like in your head about it, right? And like that's where it's like you got to find a happy medium. And that's why I'm trying to get less in my head about things and less like
I feel like you do it to a fault now too. You're like, I'm gonna go against the grain hard. Like, I'm gonna wear shoes that I've never even seen before.
I'm gonna do nothing at all. I'm just gonna show up and play.
Some of the things like what you guys do is crazy to me. Like, Dhane, you were the MVP of the final game, had I don't know, 100 something points for like the 9th time in a row. And then I see you, I'm like, that's totally different setup of a stick. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. I'm using the same shaft of my stick for 6 years. Like,
no, we've given them.
Hey, I'm back.
I appreciate that. So it is pretty crazy, man. Like you've been playing the league for what, 18, 19, 18?
Something like
that. A long time,
Can't
right?
Count.
No. What are some of the biggest differences from when you first got into the league to right now?
Well, the one is just like the one thing that I can just remember, just even coming here, I was just trying to think of maybe like some of the stuff, you know, that's definitely changed. And the one thing that's interesting, I remember when I was playing for New York, the first time I really played, we were down 6-1 or something. And I'm like, we're in Buffalo, place where I grew up, coming to games. I'm like, it's 11 minutes left in the first quarter. And they're like, you're going in. I'm like, oh my goodness. I went in, you know, don't even have a helmet painted yet, all this stuff that's unique. And whatever, I think we end up losing 16, 13. So I was okay. And I remember after the game, I got a VHS tape of the game, being like, hey, you might want to watch this again. Like, here's your tape. And like, obviously, like that's a weird thing to think of. That just ages me right there. But that's what I was like, oh, I'm going to watch. And that's when I started doing a lot of the prep stuff that I started to do, but it was on a VHS.
So would they give like each guy
or they would give, and then like ultimately they were CDs, like, right. Like DVDs and stuff like that. And that's what I have. Like I have a box. I have even my brother, the one that paints my helmets, he gave me one year for Christmas, like a year worth of game film.
No way.
That's
cool. Like crazy to think. Like now it's like we're on Huddle. You're like doing this. You're getting a clip.
But you can't
to
find
your
that
email.
stuff now. Like,
no, it's great to have.
It's really cool.
Man, I've always tried to find film of old games to like, and honestly, a lot of it is to like see how like JT used to play. To see how like
I have some of them if you want some.
Honestly, I might have to steal those from you because there is so much that, and I think that's kind of cool right now, and like fast forward 20 years from now, like your kids will be able to watch and like go up on YouTube and check it out.
There'll be something different.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Who knows? But like the visibility of it is gonna be pretty cool to be able to look back.
And they're gonna still say you suck.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, come on.
You're gonna be fat out of shape and be like, that was you.
Speaking of fat out of shape, you are not. So like, what do you do for like recovery and to get in shape? We kind of know you kind of put us through a boot camp during COVID, but.
And like for me, like I especially as I've gotten older, obviously you've had to change your workouts, but it's super weird where I write every workout down. Like I have books of them. Like this is and I write like after the week we like the score of the game, either win or something, and I try to like find those good games. You're like, oh, this was good. I didn't feel super sore, or I felt good. And then I also, like, before training camp, you also want to, look at what you're doing. I want to look at what I did in 2013, which is a weird thing for you guys to hear. Like, you're like, oh, what was I doing?
in high school.
But I was like, okay, I was, 30 years old, and I want to see if I can still do those workouts. And I think that's kind of been the mindset of how did I feel going into camp then? And I at 41, I got to be able to still do that, or I should be doing something else, I think. And that's kind of been my mindset, where I'm like, I don't want to go in feeling like, I'm the guy that's just hanging on. Right. I think physically, that's the first thing. Like if I'm going to doubt myself physically, I'm going to doubt myself on the floor, in the net, and those things. And that's why even sometimes at practice and stuff like that, I'll still do the old, splits, kick saves.
Where'd this
I'm like,
come
stop.
from?
I know, even the shots high, and I'm going down the kick
right.
save, right? But it's like that mental, you're just trying to, find it. And I think that's been a big part of myself. Like I'm a phys ed teacher, I have a pretty good opportunity to work out and do things, with the kids, go for runs, do those things. And I think that's been a big part of it, is just, recording everything and then knowing where I was at and trying not to, fall off of that.
Where does the motivation come from? Like, is it, obviously you're the most ripped dude on our team, and it's like, is it, you're trying to, last as long as possible when it comes to like playing, or is it more like health based? Or
I think all those are probably it. Number one thing, for me is, I think, I want to be healthy. That's why I'm a phys ed teacher. I'm in health. Like, that's, if I'm reading something, it's going to be health related. It's going to be about nutrition. So that's the stuff that I'm interested in. And, having kids, you want to be able, have a healthy and be able to do the things with them. So that's probably the number one reason why. And then all the other aspects is, I remember seeing somebody's talk about, what it means to be great. It says something like an average player is, takes games seriously and doing those things. A good player, takes practices seriously. And a great player, they take video seriously. They take workouts seriously, practice and games. Like, all the things. And we've talked about this before. Like, my one coach always talked about that WIN acronym. What's important right now? Like, in your day, what's important for you to be successful, in your game? Yeah. And I think that's kind of it. I'm super competitive. Mm. Even though not everybody knows that I'm super competitive, but I want to win all the time. I'm a poor sport. I think maybe that's because, I grew up as the youngest brother. I was always trying to, I couldn't not work hard and win. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was so much younger.
Well, you had to work real hard. Yeah, to work
really hard. Like, growing up, being put in net, and my brothers are like, it's weird. I got a helmet when I stopped crying. You know what I mean? In net. Like, how weird is that? That's a weird thing. Yeah. Hey, you stop crying, you can get a helmet now. Right? But it's like a rite of passage. But that's how you grew up in those type of environments. You want to win. You're the youngest brother. You're always trying to keep up. Mm. And then, I think it creates a competitiveness.
Yeah, I like that because, again, like, the amount of times you show up to practice and you're like, I don't want to be here. Like, and like, you have to take it that much serious if you want to be the best, if you want to take your game to the next level, if you want to achieve what you want to achieve. And you honestly take it for granted sometimes. I think so, at least for myself. I know that. Like,
I don't know. But it's funny, though, because, like, I think we say that, right? And then all of a sudden, you step onto the floor.
Oh, and you're going hard. Yeah, one-on-ones you don't want to do, and then you're just like, okay, like, I'm beating you.
I'm going to embarrass you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Right? It's just automatic.
That switch comes in, right? And I think that's kind of the cool thing about our sport is, like, whenever practice comes, whenever the game comes, it's just like your personality can just switch. Yeah. And it makes things a lot of fun, especially when I get to play D on you.
Yeah, it's always a competition. It's always a competition.
But you guys are like that. Like, it's 100%. And like, we have that. For me and you guys, like, I don't, like, you guys are great shooters. So, like, we try to get that, like, yeah. And we, that little subtle chirps as you're going by or whatever. And I think that's a healthy way to practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time. It's gonna help everybody's game. Yeah. What made you want to come back to Buffalo and not end, like, your career on top? Not that you're not going to.
Yeah.
Watch your mouth, dude.
I think it's a tough thing. I think the easy way out would have been to be like, hey, this is a great time to just shut her down, because it's like, that storybook ending. And the way I looked at it, like, like I talked about my kids and wife, and they're so supportive. They're such a big part of my game. I remember seeing them in the crowd, like how you guys probably remember seeing your family members after the game, and you're like, this was the best thing ever. Yeah. Right. So I went back, and you're just like, ultimately I wanted to do it again. Yeah. Right. And then having conversations with my wife, like, hey, I think she knew I was never going to retire. the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think she was like, you're just going to sit here the whole time and be like, oh, I should have been playing. Or you're watching, what's your life going to be like on a Saturday, like tomorrow, if I was retired? I probably would have bothered her the whole time. Right? Like I probably would have been, I probably would have just been sitting there being like, oh, maybe I should go back.
I should have been in that.
So I think if there's that doubt there, then you gotta, keep going. And we have such a good group. Everything seemed like it was like, oh, I want to be there to do that again.
And I'm not at the stage right now, and Josh isn't either, but just to like see your kids obviously understand it a little bit more. I know like Bowie last year, like would understand a little bit, but this year, like seeing that video of him just saying the referees aren't very good or whatever it was, like that's so cool to me that he understands the game. He's actually like paying attention. Like that's what you want to be like, right? Like you grow up being able to remember those things, and like now he's going to be able to remember that like it forever.
That's ultimately it too. I think like, over COVID, it was like a glimpse into like, this is what retirement's like a little bit. Like this is what it is when you stop playing. And I was just like, oh, like even at that time, I don't think Lily would have even understood, maybe what I did. So you want to have them have those experiences, like come to the games, see those things. Like you mentioned that in our last game, he was like, oh, you were out of the net running with the ball. Like it's weird that he's able to know things or knows all you guys. Like I think that's cool to be able to share that with. And, just driving home from the cottage with him, the deciding factor was he was sleeping. He just woke up and he goes, hey, I think you should play again.
No way.
But not knowing that I was going to retire. So like he hears stuff and and you get to know those things.
Really cool.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's something where, you're just probably so flushed with emotion. I can't imagine, I can't imagine having kids, let alone having that conversation with me. But that's insane. What I guess you've had so many teammates in the past. Some that I know personally. Billy D. Did you ever play with Mark?
I grew up with him.
You grew up with Mark.
Played with him in the summer.
Yeah. I guess who would be one of your, I don't want to say favorite teammates, but at least most entertaining teammates?
I would say it would have to be like growing up for as long as I did with Billy. Like we have a great connection. Yeah. Like being the goalie, like he called himself the guard dog. He was the guard. He was guarding the net. Like that's legitimately how he felt. And like you guys knowing him personally, like he would tell me to let him off his leash, and he was gonna go like he's gonna protect me to the core. And like that's how he is, off the floor. Yeah. Right. Like that's how his actual mindset was. Just having those one-on-one conversations with him. I'm fortunate that I was able to play with him for 1 year in Rochester, just because. I grew up with them, playing Team Canada, playing St. Catharines, playing with them in the summer, and having that connection, and then finally being able to play with them professionally. And, it was one of the things where, when I was a free agent, he was still with Rochester, and he goes, I think you got to experience what being treated like a professional is like, and that's why you got to go to Buffalo. Damn. Like, that's like, and now myself, you guys are only played here, so like you see it totally different as somebody coming in and getting to experience the fans and all that stuff, and it's a different place. Right. Mark, I love Mark. He probably would have drove me crazy because he would have messing with me. Right.
That's him.
I played with him in Team Canada, and he was always but I was playing out then, so it wasn't as bad. I was able to embrace it, do those things.
Yeah, hack him up.
Yeah, so it wasn't as bad, but. Playing tricks on me in the dorms and stuff like that. I could see him doing that, like hiding my pre-workout or something, child, right? Like he would have been picking on me for sure because he knows I would have given him a good reaction. Yeah. But yeah, he was great. And then I have guys like in Rochester, Scott Campbell, Soupy Campbell. Yeah. I think he was perfect. Him and Jordan Hall are both roommates there. They're perfect for me because they. Are a little less serious than I am. Yeah. Right. I was always serious, and those guys would always make me laugh. And
So obviously I cut Josh off earlier about all your accomplishments, but what do you think your biggest one was? And I know, again, there's so many and it's hard to just choose one, but it could have been your first like one when you're younger or whatever it may be, but I'm sure.
I think I look at a lot of them differently. Like it's, the NLL championships are really special, especially, the ones that, are able to, like last year, spend them with my family. The winning of the ones in Rochester, it's weird. It was like a little bit of a blur. It was like just so years of success.
Yeah.
But I think like growing up, like the Minto Cups are very special for me because it was St. Catharines, with a lot of guys that end up playing in the NLL, and
you only have 5 years to do it too.
Childhood friends, and a lot of those things are huge. And then, so I think it's got to be the Minto Cup, and then winning the one championships with Team Canada were pretty special as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's tough to choose because there's hard. A lot of you. Now I'm thinking about Man Cups, stuff like that. So, but the field lacrosse ones are huge. I think maybe just because I was like more of a role player. We beat the United States in 2006, which was a pretty cool moment playing with, Gary Gate, John Grant Jr., those guys. And, as a young guy and. That's really just cool. Out of college.
Must be tough, eh?
So many guys. He's all over the map.
Yeah, I feel bad saying and talking.
Everything possible. Yeah.
I feel bad talking like that, but it just is.
Really cool. It's incredible, man.
It's something that like we look to do, and we want to follow in those footsteps.
And that's I think what drives us, right?
And we remember this, and like when we won our championship in the PL for the Chaos, you're like the first guy to text us and be like, let's win in Buffalo now. Like winning's contagious. Like that was our first like real taste of like winning something like big like that for the most part. So it was like really cool for you to reach out like that. And then like you're totally right. Like now it's just like, okay, let's get that next one. Let's get that next one.
Well, it becomes a standard, right? And I think the other part about it is like you start to understand, what it takes to win, right? And it's funny. I've got a moment in my head where. I think it was one of the championships that we lost in the PLL, where someone greased me pretty bad, and I was pretty rattled about it. But we lost, and that moment was what kind of turned the entire game around. And I think that moment kind of taught me a lot about what needs to be done to win. And it's crazy because like I feel like you do need to get there a couple of times to understand it. Yeah. Like I remember like our first go at it in Buffalo, in Calgary. I remember the very first shift coming onto the floor and thinking I was ready, and got hit like 4 or 5 times like in the one shift, and was just like, I'm not even anywhere close to this. Like that level of competition is like, I'm like, you have to be ready to kill whoever is standing in front of you. Like it's just a totally different just mentality going into to try to win a championship. What was you mentioned there's obviously a big turning point and trying to figure out where you're going to go when you left Roch to come to Buff. What was the hardest part about making that decision?
The hardest part for me is knowing that I'm letting people down. Like I think that was the toughest part. Was like, I know I knew there was rumblings, that Rochester, was going to be moving, and it wasn't going to fit the lifestyle. Having a daughter that's 1 at the time, and trying to have a growing family. So knowing, I didn't want to do something for 1 year and then have to revisit it. And ultimately for me, it was playing in front of my family was the most important thing.
Yeah.
And being able to now do that in Buffalo in front of, 19,000 people on a regular basis, like that's a special opportunity that not everybody has. And I think it was like a perfect fitting, but ultimately for me it was like, I remember, a lot of guys, we had a lot of special connections with people in Rochester, the coaching staff included, Hazer, Patty O'Toole, Halifax current coach Mike Accursi, who's a buddy of mine. A lot of teammates. You're just like, oh, I gotta.
It's tough.
And I probably didn't handle it the right way. you don't know how to handle it.
Right.
You don't know what to say. And it's awkward. But ultimately I knew for myself and my family that this was the number one choice. I kept coming in hot on it, but I knew I was wanting to come to Buffalo.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a few more minutes here, but I wanted to ask this question specifically. It's kind of a two-headed question, and one is
question.
what's it like working with Eric now? Being obviously he's coming in with you from Rochester. Well, I shouldn't say coming with you, but whatever. And then also, not many people know that you have another brother that does some stuff, and I'll let you discuss that. But first Eric, and then your other brother. It's
funny for my wife always talks about my family, at her wedding, it's we're like a biker gang, once you're in, you're protected to the core type of thing. And like I said, growing up with two older brothers, very special and unique upbringing. Talk about their favorite toy. It was definitely me, being the youngest, but again, like it's been special. I think we were a close knit group, my mom included. Just growing up, always supported me and brother. Eric's always kind of coached me a lot, as a junior A player, minor, and then now in Buffalo. But we've always had that dialogue. We were all goalies, actually all hockey goalies growing up. So they all understand the position. And Eric's always been like my goalie coach away from the game, whether I was in New York, Rochester, wherever I was. He just knows. He knows my tendencies, knows how I'm thinking, all those things. And to be able to now, as you get older, you don't get to spend as much time with people. Now you're able to cool. Travel and do all those things with them. It's been awesome. And my brother, going back to when I was playing junior hockey, my brother started painting my helmets. Mm-hmm. He's a graphic artist, and I don't know. I think he's done 18 NLL helmets for me. He does some other guys' helmets, but has done a lot of helmets for myself. You guys even seen some of the junior A ones, the player helmets and stuff like that I did wear. Yeah. But it's a special connection where you're able to every time you see your helmet, you're like, that's family. Wearing my number, it's family. Like all those things, I think is putting me in the right mindset. I think.
That's really big cool. Time. You know what? It's really cool because I think Eric really understands the game. Even for us, like he's been a huge help. Seeing and understanding different things, and also just understanding like how to talk. He's very good at like talking to people and communicating.
Which is weird because if a lot of people out here are going like, are we speaking of the same person? Right? He only talks to people if you're ready, he's going to chirp you usually, but
he'll definitely know
the more comfortable he gets with you, the more chirpy he gets with you.
But he's someone that I respect a ton, and that I don't think he gets credit for as much work as he does, for our organization. Having a brother myself, would love to one day play with them, but to work with them in some capacity would be awesome. So I'm a little jealous of you for that, but that's incredible. This year's mask, any particular parts? What was the thought process going into it?
I think for myself, like growing up, I always liked Ed Belfour's mask, those guys like in hockey, like that have always had like no matter what team they played on, it was always like you knew what to expect a little bit, and that's kind of what I have on the bottom, and then up top is kind of where my mask can change, and this one, to be perfectly honest with you, I had a lot of like inside, and I would tell my brother I would actually act like I was a good drawer and artist, and I would draw it out and. And then he would be like, "Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks for that." Yeah, and then he would do it, right? Yeah. So he does a lot of that stuff on his own, and I like the big eye. Like it's. I think it's just like I don't know. It's when you think of Buffalo Bandits, like I think of that old jersey with the big eye.
Oh yeah.
We need to bring that back.
That's what I think of, and I just think it looks mean and it's
staring
super
you down.
Cool. Yeah, like I like that aspect of it. And then I've never worn, an all black helmet, and that's kind of what I was like. I want the all black helmet. Yeah. I think it looks meaner. It looks like a different look, and my brother just, does a lot of the added touches to it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Obviously,
man,
taking the time.
We really appreciate
Sure,
it.
we'll see you.
Says,
See you soon.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see you. But yeah, that's it for now. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, like the video, and we'll see you guys next time.